In today's video, I'm going to reflect on 2 years of motherhood, and I want to share with you the 3 things I regret doing, the 3 things I wish I've done differently. Now, this isn't your typical listicle video. I'm not going to share with you any things that I regret buying or that I regret not buying. I'm not going to also share with you any parenting things that I wish I didn't do. Really, these things that I'm sharing here today are things that are going deeper, that are going deep into the motherhood initiation, and that I regret doing. So here we go. Hi, I'm Daniela, and I help women remember who they really are through the portal of motherhood and creating heart-centered businesses. Today's video focuses on the motherhood aspect. So April has become a very important month for me now. It's the month I gave birth to my daughter 2 years ago. And this second birthday is quite significant for me because when I look back at her first birthday, I noticed how I was still stuck so much in the sort of throes of the postpartum period and kind of the baby period still. And there were just still many things that I had to unravel, still many things that I had to work through. I mean, it doesn't mean that I've done all this now, but I'm so much further ahead than I was when she was just 1. So now when she turned 2, I feel way more removed from it all. So I'm not so closely attached to all of the things that were difficult for me and all of the things that I had to work through. And so this second birthday therefore has much more significance for me on a more soul and spiritual level. And this was also the time now that I could really distill the things that have happened in the first 2 years and make sense of them, make meaning. And from this space, I could then look at, what were the things that I wish I'd done differently? What are the things that I regret in those 2 years? So my top regret is not listening to my intuition sooner. My intuition spoke to me so loudly right from the start. And I've done a lot of things to ignore it. I've done a lot of things to drown out the intensity of my intuition by just kind of following other people's opinions or just being totally lost and not knowing what to do. But those surges that came up, the surges of energy, the tears, obviously intuition showed up in different ways, but the way it happened, I did a lot to ignore it because I think I was not used to the intensity that it would come up. And I often didn't know what to do with it because perhaps I had agreed something with my partner, or perhaps it just didn't fit the current situation, because I wanted to say, no, don't take my baby now, to maybe my mother-in-law. But I felt like I couldn't. And so I let her take the baby. Or I did something that I had agreed with my partner, even though my intuition was saying, you should, for example, feed her to sleep now, even though we, for example, had agreed for a certain period of time that I wouldn't do that. I'm back to doing that now because my intuition did win. But at the time, I felt in such conflict with what my heart was saying and what that feeling inside of me was saying, and the agreement that I maybe had made with my partner or with someone else, or with a piece of advice I've heard, or with something on the external. It was in stark contrast to what I was feeling internally. But I had no real compass on how to listen to my intuition, because before, I think it wasn't speaking to me so loudly and it wasn't guiding me so much than what it is doing now. So that's the first thing. I wish I'd listened to my intuition sooner. The second regret is around grief. So not allowing space for grief. For me personally, that is the grief around the birth I had. I think that's the biggest grief, or the biggest thing that I had to grieve, or I am still grieving. But there are lots of other little moments where I didn't know how to grieve, or that it needed to be grieved. And so really making space for that would have allowed my experience to be easier. And interestingly, that big element around grief and the birth for me has been, I thought I had dealt with it beforehand. So just for context, I really wanted a home birth, which is already quite difficult to do where I live. But I managed to find someone who would support me in this, and everything was planned. And then a month before I gave birth, I found out that my placenta was covering the birth canal, and therefore I had to have a C-section. I had time to prepare myself for it. I know a lot of other women have to go through emergency C-section, and that can be very, very traumatic. But even a planned C-section is very traumatic can be very traumatic if you didn't want it this way. I certainly didn't want it this way. I didn't want anything. I didn't want a pathologized birth. I didn't want to be in the hospital. All of these things. So I had to deal with the situation already beforehand, and I thought I had managed to work with it and managed to work through it by the time I gave birth. But really, I had just dealt with the symptoms of it and the things the acute things, the things like the realities of preparing myself for a birth in hospital. But I hadn't grieved the actual birth experience that I had and everything that followed in the hospital. And if this is my last birth, if I don't have any other children, then I may never have the chance to experience a vaginal birth, experience a home birth. And that bit, that grieving this I have pushed aside, because of course there are many other things that come after the birth, but even almost 2 years later, I'm just only starting to work with it now. I have a wonderful practitioner that I'm working with to go through this. And even interestingly there, I wanted to work on other symptoms first. I wanted to fix other things first before I really dive into the grief around the birth and what had actually happened there at the hospital and how it impacted me. So yeah, grief, another big thing and another big regret. Okay, and now the third thing, and that is trying to control this motherhood experience is my third regret. So that for me shows up in many different disguises. And interestingly, I thought that I had already dealt with it. I already worked through it before I became a mother. But let me tell you, the ways that this trying to control experience and reality shows up for me in motherhood was intense. So intense that it sometimes physically hurt. And so for me, how does it show up? It shows up in wanting to have a tidy home, in trying to clean the counter and clean all the dishes away, or all the ingredients away before we have dinner, and I let my dinner get cold because perhaps I had a really difficult day, perhaps at work, trying to juggle work and motherhood, or I had a difficult day with my daughter, and just a clean, thinking that a clean kitchen will give me a sense of peace is such an illusion. But one part of me still believes that doing that does give me peace and will give me peace. So this is really something that I had to work with. And it is a regret that I have. And it's something that I regret doing because it also took me out of the moment with my daughter. It's, as I said, it shows up in for me in like wanting to have a clean home and being maybe too focused on that, and then also trying to have it all together. So that's for me trying to control things, that trying to convey this version of yourself, or show this version to yourself to the outside world by you have it all together, and you know, motherhood is what you're meant to be doing, has been super hard for me. But I guess again it comes from years of conditioning and years of showing up in a certain way, that when you're then met with such an intense experience and you're still trying to control the situation, or you're still trying to control the narrative, how other people see you, then to not have it all together would be in complete conflict with that. So this part of me who really loves to control life had to get a real big wake-up call in this motherhood journey. And yes, it's one of my regrets in those first few months and the first 2 years of motherhood. So now let's bring it all together. Why does it matter? Why do regrets matter? Why is it important that we reflect on the things that we regret or that we wish we've done? So for me, regrets show me where something isn't quite right. So in situations where I try to control, in situations where I wish I would grieve something, or in situations where I didn't listen to my intuition and I wish I would have, that is something that really tries to point me towards the truth, to what actually matters here, what's actually true, and not what I think I should be doing or what I think other people are expecting from me. So this is my invitation to you. Reflect on the regrets. Reflect on the things that you wish you've done, and see what comes up and see where that takes you. And I would love to know what's coming up for you. And I'd love to know what you might be regretting in those 2 years, 3 years, 10 years of motherhood. So yeah, share them in the comments below, and I see you in the next video.